Well, now if we were to show a picture on the screen of an average male student from Weslaco, just an average student here in the Valley anywhere, it would look a lot like our keynote speaker today. He might have grown up in a different part of the country, but the culture around his childhood are very much like what we see right here in Weslaco, where in places poverty and gangs are common. And today we're going to hear about a success story of a young man that had an extraordinary survival skill. He's an award-winning college professor, an author, a motivational speaker. His message is about overcoming adversity, inspiring leadership, and is a living example of the power of an education. As an associate professor of sociology at UC Santa Barbara, his research for the university is based on urban ethnography, policing and criminal justice, resilience, and the motivation of our youth. He will discuss findings from 10 years of studying delinquent, gang-associated, and marginalized youths in school and street settings. Dr. Rios is going to present the best practices that provide avenues for transformation for young people placed at risk. He's going to weave his inspiring life story into his presentation as an example of how one juvenile delinquent gang member was motivated and supported by caring teachers and law enforcement officials. The title of his talk today is Using the Power of the Village to Motivate Students for Success. It's a privilege for me and a great opportunity for me to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Victor Rios.
Honor for me to be here today. I'm just going to grab my laptop here and put it up. Sorry about your glasses. I hope they're not too expensive. All right, let's see. Let's get this. Okay. Technology. Can't live with it, can't live without it. Wow. I am contagious by all your energy. Your energy has penetrated my spirit. I love the pom-poms. I love the color. Every single school district in America should begin their school year like you do. You should be a model. Yes. So you've been sitting for a while. Why don't we stand up for a little bit? Stretch those bones, stretch those legs. I was just on an 8-hour trip from California. So I had to do all the, yoga moves they teach you to do, and you stretch, and, trying to stay all balanced. My knees still hurt, but I had a great trip here. And it's even wonderful when I walk in here and your superintendent says to you, who's the most important person in our students' education, and you say, who's the most important person in our students' education? I am. When I say who, you say I. Who? Who? Wow. It's beautiful. Beautiful. That's right. That's right. And the reason I'm so impressed by this energy and your willingness to take responsibility, right? That's what this is about, is because then we role model to our children to take responsibility, and to our families to take responsibility, and to our communities to take responsibility. So instead of us saying, oh, it's the parents, and them saying, no, it's the teachers, we say, well, it's all of us. It's the village. And that's why I'm so empowered and motivated and inspired by your energy today. So today, I'm here to talk about the power of the village. And I'm sure Dr. Alejandro and all the other doctors in the house would agree with me that it truly takes a village to make a doctor. It truly does. And that village begins with you when we're chamaquitos, little mocosos, in need of guidance, in need of support. Maybe we're not getting it at home. And you have a hard job. But every time we walk into your classroom, every time you're cleaning all the mess we left behind in the bathroom, if you're the grounds people, every time you're feeding us, and we're like, can I have more? Can I have more? I'm hungry. And you get irritated by us, right? Remember why you went into working at a school, whether an educator or a support person. You went in it to help our most vulnerable population, our little children, to survive, to thrive, to become someone important in life. And every single one of you in here has the potential and the skill set to motivate, inspire, and transform the lives of our youngest population. So that one day they grow up and maybe they could come to you and say, teacher, because of you, I became Dr. Rodriguez. Mr. or Mrs. who works at the school, because of you, I became Dr. Juarez. You see, educators, it was because of people like you and the village that I became Dr. Victor Rios. And so, I want to start with an exercise, with an activity. Okay? I want you to picture for me, please, the most challenging student you've ever had. Put him in your head, or her in your head. Not for too long, don't worry. Not for too long. Okay? You got him in your head? Okay. Picture his clothing, how he dresses, or she. Picture his family, his living situation. Picture how he talks to you. Okay, is he in there? He's in there. Okay, now, I want you to think of the first word that comes to your head. The first word that comes to your head when I ask you to think about this child. It could be an adjective. Right? What's the first word? And on the count of three, keep it on the tip of your tongue. On the count of three, we're all going to shout it out. Don't worry, we're all adults here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Burro. Wow. How easily they forget that they're on global TV. The whole child, the whole world, the whole universe. Van a ver, van a ver. So raise your hand, let's be honest. Raise your hand if the word you thought of was a negative word. Raise them high. Let's be honest. Come on, let's be honest. First word in your head. Okay. Some of you are brave and honest. Raise your hand if the first word you thought of was a positive. Wow. And 80% of you plead the fifth. That's a good one, teacher. So, we have many words to describe our challenging students. At risk, menso, burro. Challenging, troublemaker, low performing. And then they invent all these other words that are code words, right? Resource, special services, after school. Have you heard of the latest one? They're calling challenging students in the high school college prep. And I'm like, all right. You put them in a college prep academy. I went to do this big study for 2 years at this local high school in California. Wow, increíble. You know, this is amazing. All the little, challenging students are now in a college prep track. And I go and I walk in and it's the same all punishment, program, right? Sit there, throw spitballs at the teacher, no one's teaching you, right? So we create all these words, all this vocabulary, but in the end, we're practicing the same thing, which is why I'm so impressed by your energy, because when I travel the country and talk to teachers, I don't get this kind of energy. So I'm very, very impressed with your energy. And really already you are beginning to show signs of that village to me, right? Because the village needs to begin with, right, this positive attitude, which you have today. And then number two, right, the other big important thing is that positive thinking is the beginning step for motivating and transforming young people. We have to think positive about them, even the most challenging ones, right? Because the minute we start thinking positive about them, right, there's an opportunity. I'm not saying they're all going to be successful, because there's a lot of obstacles out against our children today, right? But there's an opportunity, one added opportunity for them to make it to the next level. And so we have to really reflect on our attitude and our body language towards students, because we can say, no, I don't treat them bad. But if our body language closes down when they're around because they're the challenging kid and that bad words in our head, burro, troublemaker, or whatever it is, right? Our bodies do shut down and the children read it, right? And Dr. Alejandro says, hey, we have to have them prepared to learn, right? And a Harvard education scholar, Herbert Cole, will say, well, how about this idea? How about that we have to gain our children's permission to learn from us? That's a tough one, right? That's a tough one. But if we could gain our children's permission to learn from us, we get a step further in being successful with them. Before I continue, I would like to show you a couple of clips, video clips, on some of my story, a little bit of my story, and then some of the work that I do. Okay?
Now, another in our series on the nation's high school dropout crisis. Tonight, one man's journey from gang member and dropout to professor, and his efforts to keep other young men from making his mistakes. Ray Suarez has our American graduate story.
My name is Victor Rios. In 1994, this was me. I was introduced to the nation in a Frontline documentary. I was a gang member, a juvenile delinquent, and a high school dropout.
But in the 18 years that followed, Victor Rios earned his high school diploma, finished college, earned a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley, and wrote 2 books on his life and his research on juvenile delinquency. He now teaches sociology at UC Santa Barbara and helps at-risk youth navigate the perils of adolescence.
I'm sure you're closer to some people than others.
Rios is also a family man with a wife, Rebecca, and 3 children. Life is constantly busy.
To be this far into the future, I feel like I've lived 2 lifetimes. To live 2 lifetimes. The opportunity for people to live 2 lifetimes. And how us as educators can be instrumental in providing young people the opportunity to live 2 lifetimes. You see, the main reason why I had this challenging upbringing and for myself, decided that school was not for me at a young age, was because of the background, the struggles that I lived. I was born in Mexico, and I remember when I was this little, about 3 years old, I remember struggling. I remember going hungry at night I remember seeing my mom cry because she couldn't pay for our food. And my father, he wasn't around. He abandoned us before I was even born. And so one day, my tia is talking to my mom, and she's seeing how much we're all suffering. And she says, "Mija, tienes que ir para el otro lado, para el norte, to the land of opportunity. A place where nobody goes hungry, where you could eat carne asada every day." Where people dress nice. Y cuando llegues el gobierno te va a regalar una casa bien grande, mija. Now, I don't know what kind of TV shows my tia was watching. Or what she was smoking. But my mom believed her. And she grabbed my older brother and I and took us to the border. And we tried to get across. And they caught us and they threw us back in the streets of Tijuana. And in the streets of Tijuana, we ended up homeless and hungry. I remember having to stick my little hand out, begging people for money so we can eat. And I remember seeing my mom stick her hand out and say, "Por favor, un pesito para alimentar a mis hijos." The situation got really desperate. And desperate times call for desperate measures. So my mom, one day, grabbed my brother by the hand, threw me on her hip, took us through some desert streams, behind some hills. She hid us for a long time. And I remember being thirsty and hungry and thirsty and hungry. And finally, we crossed over this ridge and we made it to Los Estados Unidos, the land of opportunity. But when we got here, we quickly realized that things weren't going to change much. My mom, she got a job, but her boss told her, "I'm going to pay you whatever I want. And if you tell anyone, I'll call immigration so they could send you back to Mexico," because he wasn't paying her not even minimum wage. So living in fear of being deported. I remember as I'm growing up, we're living in these bad apartments. Places were just nasty. They were full of rats this big, with tails that long. Cucarachas were crawling everywhere. You step on one, 4 more would come out. And we weren't dirty people. Well, I was a little bit. But the landlord wouldn't get rid of the rats and the cucarachas. And we couldn't afford the bills. So sometimes we had to run an orange extension cord from the neighbor's house just to get electricity. The situation got so bad that one day, my little primo, he's 2 months old. Little baby, he's sleeping in his crib next door. The rats crawled on the crib, and they began to chew his face up. They chewed his lips, his gums, his cheeks. By the time that his mom got up and turned on the light, the little boy was in a pool of blood. My primo, little cousin, ended up in the hospital for months. His little face had to get reconstructed. And by this time, I'm growing up without the village supporting me. Because you see, I was in a poor neighborhood, in a poor environment full of drugs and gangs. My mom was struggling. She couldn't support me. And I would show up to school, and there was a cultural collision between los de abajo, those of us that were poor, and the people at the school that did not understand us. So one day, right, one of the signs in this classroom I remember clearly, rule number 1, be prepared to learn. I would sit in the front of the classroom. But all my life, I've needed lentes, I've needed glasses. But I'm sitting in front of the classroom and I'm looking at the board. And the maestra says, Victor, I want you to read this word. And I look at the word and I can't see it, and I said, no. And she thought I was being defiant. She says, I want you to read the word. She started yelling at me. I got sad. I looked down. I said, no. I couldn't read it. And I couldn't tell her that I couldn't read it because I needed glasses, right? So this dire poverty where I'm not even able to take care of a basic health need. Right? And then this teacher not understanding that gets me kicked out of the classroom. And I go to the principal. So that's one kind of collision. I go to the principal, and the principal starts scolding me. And he says, Mr. Rios, son, you need to behave in class. And I'm not looking at him. I'm looking down. And he says, look at me in the eyes when I'm talking to you. Well, there's a problem here. That where my mom comes from, where she grew up, you get taught don't look at authority figures in the eyes. But in America, you shake that business deal, look at each other in the eyes, right? Cultural collision. And it happens every day, and sometimes we don't even realize it. Even if we come from the same communities that these young people come from, because by the time we make it to become educators or work at a school, we've bought into a middle-class system that expects our poor children to act middle class without the tools to teach them how. So our jobs as educators is to provide those tools, to teach them how to live in two worlds. And to be proud of where they come from, but also to know how to navigate this mainstream, conventional, middle-class world. So I'm growing up in this poverty, and I remember when this happened to my primo, and I told myself, man, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be poor. I want to get my family out of poverty. So I decided to drop out of school and get a job. But what kind of job do you think an 8th grade dropout gets? Huh? Selling drugs. What else? Pushing lawnmowers. You read my book? She read my book. And one day, instead of walking this way to school, I walked this way to the jardinero's house. I remember the name of his truck, the name of his business, because he was on his truck. And the name of his business started at the end of the truck, at the very rear. It was a double cabin truck. The name ended at the very front of the truck, at the headlight. And the name was Juan Jose Maria Guadalupe de la Garza Landscaping Services. His name was too long for me, so I just called him Johnny for short. So I went up to him and said, hey Johnny, hey Holmes, let me get a job. Oh, you're too little, go back to school, mocoso. Johnny, please, man, my mama's broke. Let me get a job, I said. It's illegal to hire you. Finally, I told him, Johnny, ¿sabes qué? Pay me whatever you want. Oh, pay you whatever I want? Okay, get in the car, let's go. I had got a job. And it felt good to have a job. I mean, I was going to be able to save enough money working full time to help my mom with the bills. I was going to have enough money to one day buy her the house that she thought el gobierno was going to give her when she first crossed the border. Never did. They gave us a big yellow block of cheese in California. And we made some good quesadillas with that. But that was about all the gobierno gave us. And I'm thinking in my head, right? Because see, my mom, one thing she did teach me was that I needed to work hard in life. Mijo, trabaja duro, right? And I had tios that worked really hard, and they taught me to work hard. And one of the things that we have to translate culturally, right? Again, between working class culture and middle class culture, is that we're taught, the working class is taught to work hard. So we already have that hard work ethic. But we forget sometimes that hard work is not, in America, is not just about working our bodies, but it's also about working our minds. And so if that ethic is there already in the working class, our job is to be translators to move that work ethic to a more education-based model. Yeah, you work hard, you work your mind. It's not just about working hard, it's about working smart. But I didn't realize this, so I'm pushing lawnmowers at the rich people's houses. Maybe someone called you and told you, gave you the answer for the lawnmower. So, I'm pushing lawnmowers at the rich people's houses. And I'm dreaming of living in these houses one day. And one day I'm at this lady's house. And I'm in the backyard, and she has this big swimming pool. And she has a statue of a little boy peeing in the pool. And then I go to the front of the house, and the lady rolls up in a baby blue Mercedes-Benz. And this lady, she was older, she had curly white hair. She gets out of her car, and she's holding a little white dog with curly white hair. And I said to myself, when I grow up, I want this house, I want that swimming pool, I want that little boy peeing in the pool. I want that baby blue Mercedes-Benz. And I want that dog with the curly white hair. And if I work hard enough, I'll get it. Pushing lawnmowers, weeks go by. And at the end of each day, for 10 hours a day, Johnny was paying me $10 for the day. $1 an hour, exploiting me because he knew I needed the money. I'm collecting money, bought me a nice little pair of clothes, never even helped my mom with the bills. I show up one day at the house, and my mom's waiting for me. And she was disappointed. Because even though she only had a third grade education, she understood that the reason she came to this country was so that her children could become educated, could become professionals, become someone important in life, right? And so she told me, she said to me, mijo, yo quiero que regreses a la escuela. And sometimes I read a lot of studies that education scholars do, and a lot of times they'll say that in Latino culture and in African American culture, there's a very low value of education in families. But when I go study Latino families and African, I find that the parents have a high value. So I don't understand where that comes from. And I think that the confusion with those scholars that say that is that they're not there in those moments that are very emotional. I want you to go back to school. I want you to finish. We came to this country for you to make it. And sometimes parents just don't have the tools to teach kids how to make it to the next level. I go back to school. By this time, I'm getting older. Started dressing up in really baggy clothes. And before you know it, I get caught up in the street life. I get jumped into a gang. and I start going in and out of juvie. I was stealing cars with my friends, and I wasn't learning my lesson. In and out of juvie, in and out of juvie. And then one day, I went to the other side of town to visit some girls that my friend and I met. And we get there, we're hanging out with them. A group of guys comes up to us and starts to fight with us. They pull out a gun. I started running. My friend started running. I heard gunshots. Boom, 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 boom. I hid between two cars. I turn around. Those guys are running away. I'm looking for my friend. I don't see him. I turn around the car. I see his feet. I get a little closer. I start shaking him, shaking his feet. He's not responding. I look up. He's in a pool of blood. 15-year-old kid, my best friend, was dead. And at this point, I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know where to go. So I went to the one place. I couldn't go to my mom. My friends wanted to go shoot up the guys that did this. My mom didn't know how to support me. So I turned to the one place, the one person that told me once that she would be there for me when I was ready to change. You know who I turned to? I turned to you, my teacher. I go back to school. I'm walking down the hallway. And my teacher comes out of her classroom. And she says, "Victor, I heard what happened. Are you okay?" I'm acting all tough. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And this teacher, she knew how to connect with her students. She knew how to reach out. She knew how to work with students that were challenging, that everyone else had called a burro or a menso or at risk or college prep now. Right? And what she did is she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "I know you're not okay." And right when this lady tapped me on the shoulder, all the pain, all the fear, all the anger began to grow, and I began to cry. Like a little kid in front of the whole school. And you know what this teacher did? She opened up her arms, she gave me a hug, and she said, "Victor, I'm here for you. If you're ready to change your life around, I'll be here for you, but you have to do the work." And in that moment, even though she had reached out to me before, it was that one moment where I felt like everything was going to be okay, despite the poverty, despite the violence, despite having dropped out of school. In that moment, in that teacher's emotional warmth, where she saw me as something positive, when everyone else could not see that positivity, I felt that everything was going to be okay. So I went home, thought about my teacher, went back to school, told her I was ready. She connected me with the different resources. She knew the people that I got along with, like the school security guard. She went and looked for mentors, college student mentors for me. And before you know it, this village came together. And they began to guide me. And then they brought my mom into the picture. And my mom wasn't really into going to the school. She was too busy working. But they got my mom in the picture. They started working with me. And before you know it, this village came together. And I'm proud to tell you that with the support of my teacher, the support of the school security guard, support of, at the time, my probation officer too, right? I got back into school, caught up with my credits, and I ended up graduating from high school on time and with my class. But that's not all. As I'm getting ready to graduate, a few months before graduation, I know I'm going to make it. And my teacher comes up to me and she says, "Victor, I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. Now it's time to go to college." College, me? Man, what is this teacher smoking thinking I'm going to college? I'm supposed to be a gardener, remember? But with her support, the support of mentors, the support of others, my mom pushing, even though she didn't know really what college was, I applied to college, a 4-year university, a state university. I get a letter. A few months later, it says, "Congratulations, you have been admitted to California State University." And right below it said, "You have been admitted under probationary status." I said, "Probation, man, I'm already on probation. That don't matter." What I didn't realize was that there wasn't a guy that wasn't going to be a guy just following me around with a can of mace on his belt. It was like if you get a C or below, they'll kick you out because they're already giving you a second chance. Right? They're allowing you to live those 2 lifetimes, you see. And that's the theme. That's why you're the most important person in the life of our students. Because you never know at what moment you provide that stream of support. And young people, young people are like oysters. They only open up when they're ready. And so you could be providing all kinds of services and programs and support, but if that young person's not ready, it's not going to happen. But how about if you're consistent and one of those days they open up? Then they begin to transform, and you just never know who it can come from. A teacher, a custodian, a counselor, an administrator. We just never know, and that's why it's important to think of these young people in positive ways, to talk to them in positive ways, and to believe in them so much that we trick them into believing in themselves. That's what my teacher did. So, studies have shown that support from authority figures are the strongest predictor of school-appropriate behavior, positive attitudes towards school, and academic performance. What that means is that when they feel emotional support from all of you, they start improving. And study after study shows this. So what did my teacher do? I'll leave you with 4 things. She understood my social location. She understood where I was coming from. She would drive to the other side of town just twice a year to the apartment complex where all the bad kids at school lived. Get out of her car, walk up the steps, and knock on every single door. And guess what? This lady didn't know any Spanish. My mom knew no English. She knocked on the door. Hola, hola, señora. Hola, maestra, ¿cómo está? Oh, bien. Your son, he hasn't been showing up to school. Oh, sí, maestra, sí, maestra. Do you want him to fail and not graduate? Oh, sí, maestra, sí, maestra. So was that pointless? Raise your hand if you think it was pointless for my teacher to go visit. Okay, about a dozen of you believe it was pointless. Guess what? You know how I said earlier that your energy contagions me? Human connection is not about language, you see. Human connection is about emotion. See? And so if my mom saw this teacher very engaged and interested in her child's education, that changed her perception of who she should be, and it made her more engaged and curious about my educational process. And that's been documented in the research, you see. So she understood my social location. The teacher demonstrated genuine interest in my learning. So what that I was the menso, the burro, the dropout, the at-risk, the college prep. Right? It's her positive thinking, right, that was the beginning step for my motivation and my transformation. The third thing, unconditional nurturing. I cussed out that same teacher a couple times before she saved me, before she helped me. And I've met many teachers across the country where they've had an issue with a child. And they say, I don't want that child in my classroom anymore, right? So we sort of build a complex against our children, when sometimes we need to let them redeem themselves. Let them show that they can change, right? Give them that second chance. And finally, my teacher demonstrated consistency. If she punished a good kid, she punished a bad kid, all the same. There was no favoritism. Why? Because we're professionals, we're adults. We should be able to show the children a balance. So, with the support of the village, I was able to go to college, graduate in 4 years while working full-time. But in addition, I said to myself, man, after all I've been through in life, I want to go and get the highest degree awarded in this country, the PhD. I applied to another school, UC Berkeley, got in 5 years later, after writing a 250-page dissertation. In the year 2005, I'm proud to tell you, I became Dr. Victor Rios. Thank you. And so I want to propose to you today, Weslaco Independent School District, I want to propose to you that we create and continue to create this energy that's contagious me today and keep it going throughout the year, right? And that we have this continuum of care constantly pushing positive thinking, positive emotion, positive interaction to all our children and our families, whether it's the custodian, the teacher, administrators, other school employees, that we're all engaged. You ever go to a store where the clerk is smiling? Oh, you're buying asparagus today. What are you going to do with this asparagus? Oh, I'm going to roast it, you know. How long should I roast it for? Oh, I think you should do like 45 minutes, sprinkle it with garlic and black pepper and salt, and it'll be perfect. Right? 45 minutes asparagus, I don't think so. Maybe 10 minutes. And then you go to another store and the clerk's like, doot, doot, I went to Kmart yesterday in Brownsville, and that's what happened. It's like, they don't even look at you, right? Where do you want to go back to? Right? Oh, the lady over here, she's like, Saks Fifth Avenue. And I was talking more like Trader Joe's, not Saks Fifth Avenue. But yeah, you want to go back to the store that treats you with that dignity, that respect. It's all common sort of human need, right? And our children need that. They need you to be the clerk that is smiling, that is talking to them about the asparagus, teaching them how to cook that asparagus, right? And not the clerk that's like, doo, doo, doo. That's become the machine. Be careful with technology, right? Don't become the machines that you're learning to use, please. Use the machine to educate our children and don't become the machine. So let's do, in closing, a little activity. Of course, you're always demanding that our children are prepared to learn, and I don't see too many of you prepared to learn today. So I guess I'm gonna have to just have you imagine this. If you have a pen, write it on a little corner of your little program. If you have a pen, if not, just imagine it. Or you could pull out your phone and write it on your phone, just a little text message to yourself, I guess. So on a small strip of paper, please answer in one line, why did you decide to go into education? So what is your purpose for working with school children? What is your purpose? I really want it like either written or tapped into your gadget. See, I'm using technology. Yeah, text it to yourself, please. Right? Why? What is your purpose? Okay, did you write it down or did you text it? Okay. One word. Not a manifesto. Not a dissertation. One word. Why did you go into education? Did you press send already? Okay. Or you could write it on a little corner of the paper. Perfect. Okay. So now, can I get a couple volunteers to tell me what it is? Why did you go into education? What's your purpose? Raise your hand. Yes, back there. To make a difference in whose life? Everyone's life, yes. You wanted to be like those awesome teachers that you had. One more. Oh. To teach all children, not just the college prep ones, right? To teach all children, right? You see, I'm not here today, educators, to teach you how to teach or to teach you how to work at the school. No. I'm just here to remind you why you went into education. And it wasn't to make big money. This is our parking lot today. I saw a Hyundai, a Chevrolet, and a little, I don't even know what brand that is, a little Walmart truck, I guess. So you did not go into education to be rich. I did see a couple luxury vehicles. I won't tell you who stepped out of them. But anyway. Hey, I didn't learn my lesson when my mom taught me don't bite the hand that feeds you. So you didn't go into education to become rich. You went into it because of your hearts. You went into it because you wanted to motivate, to inspire, to become that awesome teacher, to create the new generation of Dr. Rodriguez, of Dr. Juarez, of Dr. Alejandro, of Dr. Rios, of professionals that come back to you and say, teacher, because of you, I became someone important. So today, educators, I am here to thank you. Because of someone like you, I found a key. I found a key to success. I found a key to my future, but most importantly, I found another kind of key, a real key. When I graduated with my PhD, I drove to the bank. And I took my PhD paperwork and I took my new job paperwork and I said, can I get a home loan? They looked at it, they ran my stuff, came back a week later, loan approved, drove around, found a house, bought the house, grabbed the key, put the key in my pocket, drove to my mom's apartment, walked up her steps, knocked her an apartment door. She opens up her door, she says, ¿Qué pasó, mijo? Reached in my pocket, pulled out the key, and said, Mama, sorry you had to wait 30 years. But here's the key to your house. You see, educators, that is your power, to transform the lives of our young people, to transform our communities, to build up our communities and bring them to a place where we get more respect, more empowerment, and more professionalism and professionalization in our communities that is much needed. And that's why I believe in you so much. That's why your energy taps into and penetrates my spirit. Because I know that out there in this audience is a change maker that will transform many, many more lives. There's my mom. So my teacher and mentors believed in me so much that they tricked me into believing in myself. That's the power of the village. So educators, I'm here today to let you know that if you believe in your students, they will accomplish the unbelievable. I'm here to let you know that you give them emotional support, and once they open up and they're ready, they will change. I'm here to let you know that if you build the village, they will come, they will live in the village, they will thrive, and they will be our next generation of professionals. My name is Dr. Rios, and I want to thank you for your time.
TJR.